So I've been getting a lot of messages and comments asking me to address whether Tulsi will qualify for the next debate, which is scheduled for October 15th in Ohio. And the answer to that question is I don't know. It's possible, but it's also possible that she will not qualify because the criteria by which she has been excluded continues to get increasingly absurd. Now, it was absurd that she was excluded from this most recent debate last night, and the nation was exposed instead to Amy Klobuchar talking about her impressively boring Midwestern roots for the 800th time. And we had to hear from Julian Castro, who couldn't even get it together to attack Biden on his cognitive impairment competently, which should have been the easiest thing in the world. So we got that, but not Tulsi's sweeping foreign policy critique, which is, of course, informed by her firsthand experience in post 9/11 war theaters. So we don't get that, but we do get those non-entities. So is she going to qualify? Well, there were two examples from just this past week of how she is being, again, egregiously disadvantaged by the criteria set forth by the DNC, which makes zero sense. There was a Boston Herald poll published today. Again, major newspaper in an early primary state, New Hampshire. The poll was conducted by Franklin Pierce University, which is, again, a reputable outfit. But the DNC, in its infinite wisdom, decided that poll does not qualify. And in that poll, Tulsi is at 3%. Doesn't sound like a huge number, but in fact, she is ahead of 5 candidates who have qualified for the debates: Beto, Booker, Klobuchar, Castro, Steyer. She's ahead of those 5 people, but because, for whatever cockamamie reason, the DNC decrees that poll doesn't count, it does not add on to her total. She is still at only 2 qualifying polls, and by October 1st, she needs 2 more. So that's what, 2 or 3 weeks? It's feasible that she will get there, but it's also feasible that her exclusion from last night's debate could cause her numbers to fall, because people begin to sort candidates based on who they are being presented with on TV, which is a capricious way of going about this, of course, but it may be the reality, sadly. And then also this past week, the absurdity was once again heightened because Tulsi got a qualifying poll, you would think, when CNN released its national poll, which put her above the 2% threshold. But shockingly, that one doesn't count. Now, why doesn't it count? It's a little bit more complicated. You have to get deep into the rabbit hole of absurdity to understand why it doesn't count. But it doesn't count for this reason, which, again, makes no sense, but this is the reason, that she already has a national poll from CNN that is qualifying for her. A couple weeks ago, she got 2% in a CNN national poll. And the DNC proclaims that you can't have more than one qualifying poll from the same publisher, in this case CNN, in the same region, in this case nationally. So she can't have more than one qualifying poll on a national level from CNN. That doesn't count for whatever inane reason. Now, she's spending a lot of time in Iowa and New Hampshire, and in order to get on the debate stage, she would have to use that sort of retail politicking to get her numbers up somewhat. But again, it's almost seems a little fruitless because there has been such a dearth of polling coming out of those states. The candidates are campaigning in the early states primarily: Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada. That's where Tulsi is devoting her resources for the most part, although she does do stops in LA and New York occasionally. But, that's where you go if you want to spread your message to the first voters who are going to be casting ballots or caucusing. And it's rare now that we get a qualifying poll out of those states. So, will she make the next debate? It's dependent on the whims, really, of whether polling agencies decide to devote the resources to polling those states in particular. Now, Tulsi says that she's going to continue on to the convention. So she's going to continue campaigning for almost a year, notwithstanding whether she qualifies for the debates. And that's going to provoke a lot of questions, and most of them attributing some kind of sinister motivation, surely, about what her objective is. I mean, I think that her objective is pretty simple. She's pretty clear about it. She has a firm set of principles that she wants to espouse, and she wants to use the vehicle available from a presidential campaign to continue espousing them. Not that complicated. So, we'll have to see what happens, to use Trump's favorite phrase. But I don't know whether she's going to make the debates. It's largely contingent on arbitrary factors, such as media and polling practices. So, we'll see. But she's still only at 2 qualifying polls, notwithstanding the fact that she's ahead substantially of many of the candidates who, from some random process, have gotten ahead of her in the very narrow criteria that the DNC is using. So, that's it. Stay tuned.